Here is the perfect pork tenderloin. How do you get a crusty golden outside and a juicy moist inside? I'm gonna show you how it works. We are taking a cue from Spain, and we're using both hot smoked paprika and sweet paprika. We're also using fresh thyme. And the combination is classic and it's beautiful. Smoky, woodsy, barbecuey, but also those fresh herbs. It sort of makes you feel like you are cooking outside in the summer. All right, spice blend. Again, this can be spice blend of your choice or just salt and pepper. We have our pork tenderloins, which we have trimmed, so there's no silver skin, but still a little bit of fat. There's very little fat on pork tenderloin, so keeping a little bit is nice. And then you just want to really get the spice blend on all sides. If you don't have smoked paprika, really what you want to replace is that smoky flavor. I like to do that with a little bit of dried chipotle, if you don't mind some kick. The other way you can do it, it's not the same smokiness, but has a relation, it's smoke adjacent, would be to use cumin. All right, I'm gonna wash my hands because they've been on raw pork, and we're gonna sear off our pork tenderloin. So we're gonna heat up ample oil. Don't skimp on the oil of pork tenderloin. It's too lean and it will stick. And you don't wanna use a nonstick skillet because we need to get this too high later. So this is the part where we're using high heat, high direct heat to get the browning. But once the browning's done, we're gonna throw it into an oven for that indirect, more gentle cooking of air, right? Heat coming through air. And that allows us to get the interior up to temp without burning the exterior. Make a little pork tenderloin circle. 2 sausages in a pan. Give them a little time. Doesn't take a ton, but you want 2, 3, 4 minutes per side to get a nice golden brown crust. The crust, I think, is as important as the golden brown. So a lot of people stop short at golden brown, but it's still really soft on the outside. You want that crunch so that you get that sensation that's different from the inside. The pork will tell you when it is ready to turn. The pork will release itself when it's brown enough. If you grip at it, you're gonna tear it, which not only is not attractive, those bits on the bottom of the pan will actually burn later when we're making our pan sauce. Oh yes, that is what you're looking for. Not just golden brown, but actually the textural difference. Ooh, gorgeous. So you can see that the oil is actually changing color. That's flavor from the spices. That flavor is going to go into our pan sauce later. Okay, so here's a great example. We've got golden brown, but nowhere near that crust that we have on this side. That's where I say the texture is as important as the color cue. So we want it golden brown, but also a little bit crusty. That needs more time. We're getting the sear on the outside, and then gently we're gonna get up to 140 degrees in the oven. Oh yeah, see that? Now we've got the texture and the color cue. This is perfect. So, perfect. This now just gets transferred into a 450 degree oven until it's 140, then we're gonna let it rest. And so this will take 9 to 12 minutes. 140 is what we're looking for, or it's going to go back in the oven. That's perfect. So first, transfer your pork so it can rest and get up to its final resting temperature of 145. There is so much flavor in this pan, not only from the spices, but now also from the fond, which is all this brown, delicious stuff on the bottom. Remember, the handle of your pan is hot from being in the oven. This is the trick. So there are 5 steps to a butter-mounted pan sauce, which is the fancy sounding one. First is the fond. That's the brown stuff left in the bottom of a pan. Then an aromatic. We're using garlic. It could be shallots, scallions, a little bit of minced onion. You want to heat the garlic just until it's aromatic, because then we're going to add a little bit of sweetener. That's it. Plenty of caramelization. Now we need to slow down the cooking so we don't get a burned pan sauce. You need a liquid. Step 3. It could be water. No one thinks it can. It absolutely can. Broth is nice because it has more flavor and more body, but we're going to add a ton of body with the butter that's coming soon, so it does not have to be broth. And we want to cook this until it reduces. We want this to thicken now. All right, we want this at a nice simmer, but not a boil. You can also see now that the liquid means the bottom of our pan, which you can just see, is clean. So all that flavor that came from the spices that infused the oil and came from the browning of the pork, all that flavor is now in our pan sauce. So now we want to add element number 4 of a great pan sauce, some sort of tang, something acidic. We're using sherry vinegar. It could be lemon juice. It could be a different vinegar. There are balsamic pan sauces. You just want a tang. So remember, we had fond, we had aromatic, we had liquid, now we have tang. And we're just going to cook that off a little bit because we don't want it to have that raw vinegar bite. So now we're going to do element 5, the butter. It's a butter mounted pan sauce. We need the butter. You want to add the butter 1 piece at a time and stir it in. So butter is an emulsification, and we're going to use it to emulsify our pan sauce. If you add it too quickly, you won't get a nice smooth velvety sauce. If your pan sauce emulsion breaks because you got impatient, add a little bit of water, a little bit at a time, and it can help you recreate the emulsion. Pork is delicious. It doesn't need the pan sauce. You could serve it on salad, on rice, make rice bowls. The pan sauce is what takes it to the next level. Oh, look how thick this is starting to get. This is beautiful. You want to keep the heat nice and low. And I'm just doing this with a spatula. You don't need a whisk. You don't have to be fancy. As it gets thicker, it's not going to move around the pan as much. Sometimes I create a little pool so there's enough heat to get the butter started to melt. When you're making an emulsion, you are forcing together two things that don't like to be together. So it does need movement. If you just let it melt slowly, it will break and you'll have a pool of oil and the rest of your sauce. All right, so we're going to take that off heat and we're just going to chop up some parsley, slice our pork, and we're done. So easiest way to chop parsley is actually just to take it into a ball in your hand because you need it to have enough heft, enough bulk for your knife to have purchase. Parsley into the pan sauce. All right, so let's cut our pork tenderloin, plate it up, and dinner's ready. Okay, so nice thin slices, and I like to hold my knife at an angle. I can actually feel my knife go through the spice crust. And this is great. You can see it's pink, it's juicy. Look at this, juicy! Oh, this is perfect. Look at that. All right, let's get number 2. All about the 2-step cooking method. Crunchy, crusty, beautiful golden sear, and then a gentle heat in the oven. High heat, it was 450, but the transfer of the heat is much more gentle than the transfer of the heat through your pan. And do this with confidence so you don't get blobs. And I like to do this much so every bite gets a little. People can add the flavor if they want, or just have the more neutral pork tenderloin. This recipe is exactly the type of recipe I love to teach in our cooking classes, because yes, it makes a great dinner. Our pork tenderloin with smoked paprika and a lovely pan sauce. It's also, though, full of sub-recipes and techniques that you can use all over the place and just be a more confident cook who feels more fluid in the kitchen.